Before the wedding, Joanna spent a fortune to buy Nestor a 100-acre rose garden. I turned around and threw away the everlasting rose she had once given me. Before the wedding, Joanna took Nestor to the distant northwest. Strolling through the snow, she said, "The sky is filled with frost and snow, falling on our heads. Doesn't that mean we're growing old together?" I packed my luggage and returned to my own home. I let go of this ill-fated couple and cancelled our wedding. But later, Joanna came running back to me, crying and making a scene, begging to reconcile. I shook the wedding ring in my hand. "Sorry, I'm married now." Chapter 1. Inside the restaurant, I was sitting in a booth with my brothers, eating. Behind us, a table of new guests sat down. Very soon, the chatter began. I put down my chopsticks, thinking the voices behind me sounded a bit like my future father and mother-in-law. But the next moment, Joanna's name suddenly popped up, boldly. Now that Joanna and that boy Nestor have rekindled things, what about Joanna's wedding with Kevin next month? The other side stayed silent for a moment, then said, "That kid Nestor has made something of himself in recent years. He's worthy of our Joanna now. Compared to him, Kevin looks rather unimpressive. Anyway, Joanna's heart is with Nestor now. Nestor is better than Kevin in every aspect." The invitations were only just printed and haven't been sent out yet. "There's still time." Motherly nodded. "That's true. Let's find some time to talk to Kevin and ask him to step aside. Joanna won't have trouble finding a good husband. If not for back then." After that, they went on badmouthing me, saying how Nestor, whom they used to look down on, had now become successful, and how I couldn't compare to him in all kinds of ways. Across from me, my brother Simon's face turned dark. He immediately wanted to slam down his chopsticks and confront the lease. "Kevin, have you turned into some kind of ninja these past few years? This is the first time I've seen parents cover up for their cheating daughter and still try to kick you out. Nestor, what the hell is he? Isn't he just some low-level project manager in their branch office? That jerk's better than you." I held down the furious Simon and stood up, walking to the next table. The moment my ex-future-in-laws saw me, they froze on the spot, like people caught red-handed talking behind someone's back. Father Lee reacted first. He hurriedly shuffled inside, patting the chair beside him with a laugh. "Isn't this Kevin? You're here too. Come, sit down and have a drink with Uncle." I waved him off. "Better not. Since I happened to run into you here today, it saves me a trip to your house. I know you've never approved of me, so let's call off everything between Joanna Lee and me." Their faces shifted. Then they glanced behind me, realizing I had been sitting just one table away all along. So, I had heard every word of their conversation. Motherly still wanted to save face, but Fatherly stopped her. His expression returned to calm. "Since you already heard everything, Kevin, let's be frank. As her parents, we naturally hope our daughter can find a good match. In the future, when you have kids of your own, you'll understand why we do this." Inside, I gave a bitter smile. If not for their jealousy of others' children and grandchildren, they wouldn't have pushed Joanna into marrying early. I was merely the most convenient choice to appease them. Back in college, Joanna dated Nestor. They didn't approve and broke them apart. Now that they think Nestor has become successful, suddenly I'm no longer good enough. In the end, things turned out just as they wanted. She and I were never a good match anyway. Better to cut things off before it's too late. Joanna's parents quickly went along with it. Chapter 2. I didn't go out drinking with Simon. He was here on a business trip, and I still had work tomorrow. When I dropped him off at the hotel, Simon reminded me again and again, "Kevin, before I came, I was still wondering how to bring this up to you, but now, I've got nothing to hold back anymore. These past years, for that woman Joanna, you haven't even gone back home to Kyoto. You don't hang out with us brothers. No gaming, no fishing, barely any talking. All that's left are the holiday group texts you send. That's fine. We grew up together after all. But this time, I hope you really think it through. If you're feeling down, just call me. I'll drink with you." I saw Simon off with a smile. Honestly, I didn't need alcohol to numb myself. Or rather, that stage had long since passed. It had always been just me, stubbornly wanting to marry Joanna. Again and again, reality was laid out before me. I was truly exhausted. Over the past year or more, because of Nestor, Joanna and I had countless arguments, all of which ended unresolved. I couldn't stop Joanna from walking toward Nestor, so why cling on any longer? Letting them be was also freeing myself. Back home, after washing up, I went to sleep in the guest room. Ever since Nestor joined the company, getting 3 rapid promotions in a single month until he became Joanna's deputy, she started sleeping in a separate room. Her reason was that during the company's rising period, with the group's attention on her, she had to work harder. But clearly, her hard work wasn't for the company, it was all invested in Nestor. So she was busy, so our schedules no longer matched. So even though we lived together, outside of work we sometimes wouldn't even cross paths at home. No one in the entire company knew that Joanna, the vice president, and I, a manager, were in a relationship. Just as they didn't know this branch company actually belonged to my family. Funny, isn't it? My family disapproved of Joanna and me, but they didn't interfere too much either. I had an agreement with them. As long as Joanna and I worked hard and proved our abilities, they would approve of our marriage. But over the past year, the feedback from home was that the branch's performance had not met expectations. In other words, Joanna's capabilities hadn't lived up to my family's standards. That period was hard for me. I discussed company growth with Joanna a lot, and eventually we closed a few deals. I should have been promoted, but Joanna claimed that since I was an old employee, giving me the spot would crush the new hire's hopes. So she handed the promotion that should have been mine to Nestor. Thus, Nestor became the director, while I remained just a manager. I should have realized it then. Love or the lack of it is obvious. Something you can see clearly. If I had even the slightest place in Joanna's heart, she would never have let a newcomer, less than a month into the company, leapfrog 3 levels to sit in the director's chair. Chapter 3. In the middle of the night, the door to the guest room opened, and a wave of cold air rushed in, jolting me awake instantly. With a snap, the overhead light was turned on. I shielded my eyes, struggling out of the warm covers and sitting up. She handed me a box and gestured for me to open it. I opened it and found a Hermes billiard cue inside. In the past, I would have been overjoyed. After all, I love playing pool. But later, Joanna said she didn't like me playing billiards, thought I was wasting my time, so I stopped touching the cue. Now she was giving me a cue stick. If I hadn't already seen in Nestor's social media moments that she bought him a Hermes bag along with matching accessories, I might have believed her nonsense again. For Nestor, it was a Hermes bag. For me, it was the matching item she had to buy in order to get the bag for him. I nodded, closed the box, and said softly, "Thanks." Maybe my expression was too calm. Joanna raised an eyebrow, her tone laced with displeasure. "That's all you've got to say?" I thought for a moment, then decided that since we were face to face, it was time to say what needed to be said. "There's something I want to talk to you about." Upon hearing that, Joanna gave a "knew it" look and immediately cut me off. "I don't want to hear it, and I don't want to argue with you. I'm not trying to argue. I just want to tell you, we're breaking up." She stared at me wide-eyed. 2 seconds later, a mocking smile tugged at her lips and she let out a cold laugh. "Heh, now I see why you were acting all distant just now. You were setting the stage for this. Kevin, what are you trying to pull again? Just because I was on a long business trip this time and too busy to answer your calls, you're threatening me with a breakup over that?" Was she really busy? Too busy to reply to my messages or pick up my calls, while she had time to take Nestor on trips, check in at tourist spots, and shop for luxury goods? I didn't bother to expose her flimsy excuse. My tone stayed even as I said, word by word, "I've thought this through carefully. We're just not right for each other. Let's not keep dragging this out." I thought that by saying this so clearly, Joanna would realize I wasn't joking, but she didn't care at all. "Quit putting on a show. First you want to get married, now you want to break up. Kevin, do you still think you're that college kid playing house? I don't want to hear this again, or I really won't marry you." With that, she slammed the door and left, leaving behind the harsh sound of the door echoing in the room. Chapter 4. All along, marrying her and spending my life with her had been my obsession. She, on the other hand, was always reluctant. She even once told me she didn't believe in marriage at all. Yet her actions constantly teased me, hinting that if I tried harder, she might change for me. But after so many years of effort, nothing really changed. I could never reach her heart. To her, I was just the convenient shield. Since that's the case, and since her first love, Nestor, had already come back, it was only right to give her what she truly wanted. The next morning, after washing up, I went to the living room. I found Joanna busy in the kitchen. Instinctively, my eyes fell on the breakfast she was making. She hurriedly stuffed the meal into a lunchbox, as if afraid I might snatch it away, and quickly explained, "This is for Nestor. I lost a bet in a game, so this is my punishment. Don't read too much into it." I nodded calmly, expression unchanged, heart steady. Without saying a word, I went straight to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of yogurt, and opened it. The next second, a ruined sandwich was shoved in front of me. Her tone was almost like charity. "How can you be full just drinking yogurt? Eat this and wash the dishes after." I glanced at the burnt eggs and charred bread, speechless. All these years, I had been the one cooking at home. Joanna had never even washed a dish. Now, for Nestor, she was suddenly willing to roll up her sleeves and cook, but there was no way I would eat that mess. I wasn't a garbage bin to take in whatever was thrown at me. Joanna didn't care about my expression, didn't even spare me another glance. She simply turned, slipped the lunchbox into a bag, and before I could react, she was already out the door, leaning against the fridge. I looked at the empty living room and the messy kitchen. I calmly finished my yogurt, feeling an odd sense of peace inside. Chapter 5. Half an hour later, I arrived at the company. After finding HR, I submitted my application for annual leave and marriage leave together. HR was stunned. They had always thought I was single, and suddenly I was requesting both annual and marriage leave at once. Fortunately, it was the off-season, and since this was my family's branch office, I had a good relationship with all the department employees. My leave was approved quickly, and they told me that once I got the marriage certificate, I could just send it online and they would handle all the paperwork for me, no need for me to come back in person. I thanked them and left HR. Just then, a colleague called me into the break room. Puzzled, I stepped inside, and a coworker handed me coffee and breakfast. Manager Koo, here, an extra-large iced jasmine latte for you. I looked at the jasmine latte in my hand, confused about who had treated everyone so generously. A colleague quickly explained, we're riding on Director Nestor's luck. At that, instead of feeling my heart sink, I smiled faintly, raising an eyebrow with a hint of playful sarcasm. How so? Look, this cup is part of a collaboration with a game IP. If you want to collect the whole set of merchandise, 2 or 3 cups aren't enough. So, President Lee went big for Director Nestor, buying over 100 cups at once. The extras got handed out to us. I took a sip of the jasmine latte. It was still the taste I liked. President Lee really does favor Director Nestor. Normally, I never talked about these things, and I even forbade my subordinates from gossiping. So when I spoke up today, my colleagues were surprised, asking if something good had happened. I nodded. When joy comes, the spirit lifts. I'm getting married soon. Immediately, the break room erupted in gasps and congratulations. Everyone asking for wedding candies. Don't worry, everyone will get some. Once I get the certificate, I'll bring them back for you all. Suddenly, the sound of coffee spilling onto the floor came from outside the break room. I turned to see Joanna Lee standing there with a cold face. Kevin, come to my office. The atmosphere in the office was heavy. Joanna's face was stormy. What nonsense are you spouting to your colleagues? Her first words were accusations, her tone like a knife cutting into me. Taking a deep breath, I forced down the sting in my chest and said evenly, I already made things very clear to President Lee last night. I didn't know why my words provoked her so much, but she grabbed a computer mouse and hurled it at me. I frowned, dodging to the side. You think just because my family already knows about the wedding, and my parents are pressuring me to have children, you can act so arrogantly? I shook my head, helpless. That's President Lee's family business. My marriage is my private matter, it has nothing to do with you. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. Then she sneered, your marriage has nothing to do with me. Fine. You said it. Don't regret it. She pulled out her phone, dialed a number, and pressed speakerphone right in front of me. Her expression was triumphant, as if flaunting her victory, waiting for me, the supposed loser, to beg in regret. Hello, Miss Lee. This is Tom, lobby manager of Starlight Hotel. What can I do for you? Joanna's lips curved upward. I want to cancel the wedding with Kevin. Please notify everyone. Then she turned to me. Kevin, if you apologize now, I might still. But on the other end, the clatter of a keyboard stopped, replaced by a puzzled voice. Miss Lee, the wedding with Mr. Koo was already cancelled long ago, by you and your parents. Didn't you know? Chapter 6. Joanna Lee froze completely, as if she hadn't processed it. She quickly demanded into the phone. Cancelled? Are you sure? On the other end, Manager Lou's firm voice came through. Yes, I'm sure. The system shows everything was cancelled 3 days ago. It was Mr. Koo together with your parents who confirmed it. We even have the communication records as proof. Joanna no longer listened to the voice on the phone. She lifted her head, her eyes locked onto me. You cancelled the wedding together with my parents? I nodded silently. Kevin Koo, you actually went behind my back and did this. You even teamed up with my parents. You'd better explain clearly what is going on. Facing Joanna's furious outburst, I only felt irritated. I stared at her for 2 seconds, then understood, arguing was meaningless. We had already made our choices. So I turned and left the office, ignoring Joanna's shouting. Kevin, where are you going? Come back here. She stood and rushed to chase me, but before she could step out of the office, her phone rang. It was Nestor's special ringtone. She looked at the caller ID, paused for 3 seconds, then answered decisively. President Lee, this is Jordan. Director Nestor just got hit by a car downstairs. You need to come right away. What? Hit by a car? Okay, wait, I'll be right there. She lifted her head, glancing in the direction I'd gone, hesitated for a moment, then turned and hurried toward the building's exit. Until the end of the workday, I didn't see Joanna or Nestor return to the company. That evening, when I went back to the apartment we had once shared, I picked up the suitcase I had already packed and walked out. I returned to my family home, after briefly going over the details with my parents. The very next day they naturally arranged a marriage alliance for me. The partner was Robin, my childhood friend with whom I had grown up. Unexpected, but not really. Unexpected, because Robin was still single. Not unexpected, because my parents would certainly choose her as the match. For wealthy families, marriage alliances were a matter of efficiency, not feelings. Everything had already been prepared even before the marriage certificate, which was one of the unspoken rules in these circles. The moment I held the red booklet in my hand, it felt surreal. I had once looked forward so much to holding such a certificate with Joanna, but now, I realized it was never about that person. A marriage certificate was simple to obtain, and Joanna was never the right one. I was grateful that even in arranging a marriage alliance, my parents had carefully chosen a partner for me. We had grown up together, knew each other's roots and character. In business, we could support each other, and in life, Robin and I got along easily. Reuniting with her, and holding that certificate, my mother immediately kicked us out of the house under the excuse of cultivating feelings. Over those 3 days, I thought a lot. In the end, I decided I wanted to hold a grand wedding with Robin. Not for anything else, but because she was my wife, and she deserved it. When I shared this idea with my parents, they were deeply comforted, sighing with relief that I had let go of the past and embraced a new future. But a new issue arose. With two powerful families joining hands, it was impossible for the wedding to be just a casual family banquet. This wedding would not only be a celebration, but also carry significant business weight for both families. After long discussions between us, we finally decided to hold the grand wedding 3 months later. That timeline was the best and fastest outcome we could achieve together. Chapter 7. With my annual leave plus marriage leave, 20 days quickly passed. I returned to work at the branch office. The moment I came back, I sensed the atmosphere was off. When I opened the door to my office, I found it completely changed. Everything that used to belong to me had been replaced. And right there on the desk, I saw a framed photo of Nestor and Joanna. I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Take a short leave, and suddenly my office is gone, without anyone even notifying me. Ridiculous. I pulled aside a colleague at the door to ask, "Zach, what's going on here?" Zach scratched his head, looking puzzled. "Manager Koo, oh wait, Kevin, you really don't know." He glanced around, noticing that not all the employees had arrived yet, only a few from my own team. Lowering his voice, he said, "Kevin, you were fired." "You really didn't know?" "Fired? How come I don't know about it?" At my question, Zach and a few others exchanged looks. "Kevin, did you offend President Lee somehow? She's the one who fired you." "Then your office got handed over to Director Nestor," one of the team members explained quietly. I almost laughed in anger. They gave my office to Nestor? That didn't even make sense. He was a director, already one rank above me as a manager. He used to sit in Joanna's office at a special desk, and now he was taking mine. And if I had really been fired, how was it that I didn't even know? Just then, Joanna and Nestor happened to arrive at the company. Joanna walked right past me without even a glance, until I called out to her, "President Lee, what's the meaning of this? I take a marriage leave, come back, and my office is gone. As the person in charge, don't you owe me a reasonable explanation?" She stopped, gave me a brief glance, then said, "Come to my office." Inside her office, Joanna sat down in her chair, and I noticed her haggard face. Even with makeup, she couldn't hide the exhaustion. It stood in stark contrast to my own energetic appearance. The way she looked at me now carried emotions I couldn't quite read. I wondered, had the new president my father parachuted in from headquarters been giving her trouble? Most likely. Joanna had always been the vice president of this branch, while the president's seat was technically reserved for me by my father. After all, this branch was insignificant compared to headquarters, so a vice president was more than enough. The plan was for Joanna and me to grow the branch together. Then after marriage, we'd both transfer back to headquarters. But now, things had changed. My father had directly assigned Amias, a long-time trusted aide of his, to come manage the branch as president, stripping Joanna of her power. As for me, once I wrapped up a few projects, it would be about time for the wedding, and afterward, I'd be moved to headquarters to join the board of directors. It seemed the new president was indeed efficient, cleaning up the branch swiftly and decisively. Of course, Amias had worked with my father for years. Straightening out the branch was nothing for him. As I stood there silently, lost in thought, Joanna grew furious, her eyes even turning red. "Why did you block my calls? Do you know how hard I've been trying to find you?" Even with reddened eyes, her voice carried only blame and anger, as if she was mad enough to cry, not sad enough to weep. I honestly couldn't understand where her anger was coming from. I spread my hands. "President Lee, we've already broken up. Keeping a former partner's contact info isn't appropriate. Besides, I applied for annual leave and marriage leave. Surely you wouldn't expect me to work overtime on my wedding days. Our company has never had such a precedent. Why don't you explain first why I was fired?" Joanna suddenly stormed up to me, her eyes burning with fury so intense it almost felt tangible. "Annual leave and marriage leave, disappearing on purpose, wasn't it all just to force me into marrying you? Fine. I'll agree. I shook my head. I don't understand what presidently means. I applied for marriage leave, and by regulation, marriage leave requires a marriage certificate. You should have seen my certificate by now because I got married. You fired me in the company's name. As soon as I finished, something I said ignited her anger again. She raised her hand to slap me, but I quickly caught her wrist. We'd already broken up. Why should I take that slap? I shoved her hand away, and Joanna stumbled back a few steps, staring at me in disbelief. You pushed me. No, just self-defense. Presidently suddenly tried to slap me. Any normal person would block it. She let out a cold laugh, glaring at me. Hey, Kevin, don't you think you've gone too far this time? I already agreed to marry you. What more do you want? Is presidently incapable of understanding plain words? I'm married. When I applied for marriage leave, I already sent HR a copy of my marriage certificate. She froze, then shouted furiously. Kevin, have you had enough? You dare bring this up? Was it fun handing HR a fake marriage certificate? By now, I was utterly fed up. She still hadn't given me a legitimate reason why I'd been fired. You're overthinking it. I'm already married. I pulled out the marriage certificate I always carried with me and placed it before her. During my leave, I had even shown it off to Robin's friends, posting pictures along with the certificate, purely to flaunt it. I hadn't expected it to come in handy at a time like this. Joanna stared at the certificate in my hand. Then her eyes locked on my wedding ring. For a brief moment, her expression faltered, but then her gaze turned hostile. Hey, as if, Kevin, you really went all out with this act, didn't you? Not just a fake certificate, but you even wear a ring. Looking at her now, I felt only disgust. I remembered the times we had fought before, how she never trusted me, how I had argued with her until I looked pathetic. I didn't want to argue anymore. I turned and walked out of the office. Joanna rushed out after me, grabbing my arm, trying to drag me back in to continue the fight. If not for being in the public office area, I would have shaken her off completely. Just then, President Amias walked over, frowning, and barked loudly. What are you two doing? President Lee, why are you tugging at the young Maestro Ku during work hours? Amias was someone my father had personally promoted. He knew everything about the branch company, as well as about Joanna and me. He also knew my father's plans for me. Since there hadn't yet been an official order for me to return to the board, Amias still addressed me the same way as before, young Master Ku. At those words, Joanna froze. President Amias, what did you just call Kevin? Young Master Ku. Amias ignored her and turned to me instead. I adjusted my sleeve. After all, Joanna had fired me for no reason. So of course I would bring this up to Amias, my father's trusted man. It's been a while. Amias, oh, excuse me, President now. Lee fired me out of nowhere. I was just thinking of packing up and heading back to headquarters. But then she wouldn't let me leave, nor give me a reason for the dismissal. Now that you're here, Amias, maybe you can ask her for me. The moment he heard that, Amias's eyelid twitched. Originally, the plan was that during this period I'd work alongside him. The projects in my hands were all valuable ones. And once I moved back to headquarters, he'd be the one to take them over. These projects were crucial for him to establish his footing in the company. Because of my wedding, he had only congratulated me and hadn't disturbed me since. So he had no idea Joanna had fired me. President Lee, what's going on here? Why did you fire young Master Ku? Instead of answering Joanna's question, Amias directly questioned her. In terms of rank, even though he had parachuted in, his authority as president was greater than hers as vice president. Kevin used a fake marriage certificate to trick HR into giving him marriage leave. That's why I fired him. Is there a problem with that? The words stunned even Amias for a moment, as if his worldview had just been shattered. Around us, a few colleagues began whispering. Fake? No way. Manager Ku told us about it before going on leave. Yeah. Even the head of our client company mentioned it last week. They said Kevin's wedding candies were ordered through them. Huge order. They even told us to cooperate more. That's right. The deal went so smoothly that day. They even asked us to pass along congratulations to Kevin. Hearing their murmurs, Joanna's face turned pale, then flushed, then pale again. She turned to stare at me, eyes filled with disbelief. Amias rubbed his temples, then actually chuckled in exasperation. He gave Joanna a look as if she were a fool, then tossed the same look at me, almost as if to say, "This is your ex?" President Lee, young Master Ku is indeed married. That's a fact. The wedding is scheduled for 3 months from now. Since this is just a branch office, it's impossible for such matters to be announced to everyone immediately. Then he turned to the other employees. Everyone, rest assured, after his wedding, young Master Ku will still remain at the branch for a while before returning to the board. The wedding candies are already being prepared. Every single employee under Huayao Group will get some. You won't be left out. At those words, it all clicked for everyone. If his marriage meant candies for all employees of the entire group, then clearly, I wasn't just some ordinary manager. Especially the teammates who had always followed me, their eyes were practically glowing. Only Joanna and Nestor wore troubled expressions. Joanna still clung to disbelief, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her panic. Amias, is Kevin really married? Irritated, Amias snapped. Of course it's true. Young Master Ku's wife is Miss Robin, the eldest daughter of the Jean family. Do you think that could be faked? President Lee, don't tell me you accused him without even checking HR's records. Such a basic mistake makes me seriously question your work ethic and efficiency. Alright, enough of this circus first thing in the morning. Everyone, back to work. As for young Master Ku's office, he'll use mine for now. Zach, call logistics and have Ku's original office cleaned out and redecorated. As for whoever's sitting in there now, return to your original workstation. Chapter 8. Soon, I heard the sounds of logistics clearing out the office next door. For the time being, I shared an office with Amias. The office was spacious, big enough to fit another 20 desks if needed. We talked a lot, going over ongoing projects and client resources. After work, just as I stepped out of the office, I ran into several female colleagues from my former team. They all grinned mischievously at me, leaving me puzzled. Manager Ku, your wife came to pick you up from work. They deliberately stretched their words in a teasing tone. Following their gazes, I saw my newlywed wife Robin. She was dressed in Chanel's latest season dress, her long hair casually draped over her shoulders. Beneath her delicately arched brows were a pair of bright, starry eyes. Her fair, flawless skin carried a faint rosy glow. Her lips, small and naturally red without makeup, looked soft and fresh. With her signature oval face, she smiled faintly at me, dimples flickering at her cheeks. She was stunning. I quickly walked over, took the matching Chanel bag from her hands, and held her hand. Why'd you come so early? I wasn't off work yet. Looping her arm through mine, she said sweetly, her tone coquettish. Because I missed my husband, so I came early to pick him up. After saying that, she tiptoed up to kiss me on the cheek. Around us, colleagues who were still tidying up let out a chorus of teasing sounds, hastening their cleanup. One by one, they packed up and left the office, but not without calling out, "Goodbye, sister-in-law. Kevin, hurry up, I can't wait for your wedding candies. Time to scram, Kevin's wife is here." Even working overtime feels easier now. Laughing and joking, they all left the company in a rush. The office instantly grew quiet. I pinched Robin's cheek and started to lead her into my office, only to turn and see Joanna standing at her own office door, face dark, with Nestor by her side. The four of us locked eyes. All I could feel was the heavy resentment radiating from Joanna and Nestor. Joanna's reaction I could understand. After all, because of my marriage, Amias had used the chance to scold her publicly that morning, humiliating her in front of the entire staff. But Nestor, what was with that expression on his face? Shouldn't he be looking at me with the pride of a victor? After all, I had already married Robin, which meant I was completely out of Joanna's life. He and Joanna could finally be together without any obstacles. Ignoring their inexplicable glares, I pulled Robin into my arms protectively and led her toward my office. As we passed by Joanna, she suddenly stretched out a hand to block me. My expression hardened. Privately, I couldn't understand what kind of stunt she was pulling. Professionally, it was after work hours. Manager Ku, bringing outsiders into the company, isn't that inappropriate? The moment she spoke, it was exactly the kind of nonsense I didn't want to hear. I shot back without courtesy. President Lee, what do you mean, outsider? Robin is my wife. She is not an outsider. I didn't know which of my words set Joanna off again. She suddenly lunged forward, reaching for Robin's hair, shouting angrily, "Why isn't she an outsider? She's a homewrecker, a mistress. She seduced my boyfriend. Get out of here. How dare you steal my boyfriend?" Seeing this, I immediately grabbed Joanna's hand and shoved her back, then quickly turned to check on Robin. "Robin, she didn't touch you, did she? Are you hurt? Scared?" Joanna sat on the floor, staring up at me in disbelief. "Kevin, you pushed me, for this woman." Nestor hurried over to help her up, only to be shoved aside by Joanna herself, who snapped at him to get lost. Robin shook her head. Her curious eyes swept over Joanna, tinged with pride, before she clicked her tongue a few times and turned to me. "Miss Lee, back then Kevin ignored me because of you. At the time, I kept wondering, since I can remember, Kevin and I have always been together. Now I'm 27. I've known Kevin for 27 years. 7 years ago, what kind of sudden fate could outweigh the 20 years we had already shared? Looking at it now, even fate couldn't beat childhood bonds. Just like in your heart, Kevin was never as important as your first love, Nestor. So, I should thank you too, for giving Kevin back to me. To me, Kevin is the best person in this world, second only to my parents." Robin smiled, her tone sincere, without even the slightest trace of sarcasm. But sincerity is always the deadliest weapon. Joanna's face instantly turned pale, her fists clenched tight, chest heaving violently, clearly furious beyond measure. I stepped forward, took Robin's hand, and led her away, shielding her behind me. Oh, and President Lee, you just called Robin an outsider, didn't you? Robin is not an outsider. My parents gave her 10% of Huayao Group's shares as a wedding gift when she entered the family. So Robin is not only my wife, but also a shareholder of the group. President Lee, you're speaking more and more recklessly these days. Amias was right, you really do need to have your professional ability reevaluated. Chapter 9. The following days were relatively calm, at least for me. For Amias, though, things were hectic. As the saying goes, a new official lights 3 fires, and he was blazing ahead. Thanks to my marriage, Joanna had handed him 2 mistakes in quick succession, both of which delighted him to no end. Before he came, he had worried that because of my past with Joanna, even though I had made it clear we were over, I might go soft on her. That would have put him in an awkward position, stuck in the middle. But in the end, none of his worries came true. Instead, in the process of stripping Joanna of her authority, she kept stabbing herself in the foot again and again. Nothing beats an opponent sabotaging themselves. Amias filed a report to headquarters, citing Joanna's reckless firing of employees without cause. Now, dissatisfaction with Joanna among the higher-ups had reached its peak. Never mind that the employee she fired was me, what mattered was that someone who had applied for leave properly came back only to be dismissed without explanation, without investigation. That kind of behavior alone cost her much of her credibility in the company. It didn't help that no one in the company had known about my past with her. But after the scene she caused that day, everyone figured it out. And so, resentment against Joanna only grew. Who wouldn't be afraid of suddenly losing their job the next day under such a capricious boss? Having a leader who acts on emotions, that's like walking on a landmine. Add to that the things Joanna had shouted in the office that day. Once word spread, colleagues began to look at her and Nestor very differently. Tisk. I used to ship President Lee and Director Nestor so hard. Who knew it was actually President Lee and Manager Ku before? Doesn't that make Nestor the third wheel? No way he didn't know. Come to think of it, if I remember the timing right, when President Lee got promoted from director to vice president, wasn't it probably thanks to Manager Ku's help? Otherwise, how could she have risen so fast? Seriously, is President Lee blind or just heartless? She threw away someone like Manager Ku, the heir of the group, for Nestor. Cheating on the side. Disgusting. Bang. A loud crash came from Joanna's office, followed immediately by Nestor's angry voice. Joanna, what do you mean, you're firing me? Joanna rubbed her aching temples, then raised her head again. The look in her eyes as she faced Nestor was no longer the way she used to gaze at him. Instead, it was cold. After review by the company's executives, your recent work hasn't met expectations. Therefore, you are dismissed. HR should have explained this to you already. Coming to me won't change anything. This was the decision of all the higher-ups, not just me. Her words couldn't have been clearer. But Nestor, spoiled by Joanna's favoritism for so long, had long forgotten one very important fact. That was, Joanna was merely a professional manager in this company. This company was nothing more than a branch under my family's group. When a decision was made at the group level, even as vice president, Joanna had no choice but to execute it. She had no right to oppose. If she did, she would be dismissed immediately and replaced by someone parachuted in from headquarters. It had been Joanna's favoritism that gave Nestor the confidence to act so recklessly. But now, she could barely protect herself. She turned and called security, ordering them to escort Nestor out. But after more than a year of being spoiled, how could Nestor swallow such humiliation? He exploded, pointing at Joanna and shouting, instantly drawing everyone's attention. Joanna, what the hell do you mean? Kevin's already married. You two broke up long ago. So why won't you give me a title? What do you take me for? And now you want to fire me. I'm telling you, it's not that simple. Don't use some executive decision to fool me. The truth is, you've used me all this time and now you want to throw me away, trying to prove your loyalty to Amias. Isn't that it? When you were cheating back then, did you think about today? Now you want to get back with Kevin. But can't you see he has no feelings for you at all? I'm the only one who loves you. Kevin's already gone. He has a wife now. Smack, smack, smack. Joanna's face was dark as thunder as she raised her hand and slapped Nestor 3 times. Her voice was colder than ever, her eyes calm and emotionless. From the very beginning, after that class reunion, when you came looking for me, wasn't it because you wanted to use me to climb higher? You used me to become a director. I used you to make Kevin jealous. Fair, isn't it? Hearing that, Nestor's face crumbled instantly. It was as if his soul had been ripped away. He stood frozen for a long while before finally coming back to his senses. Joanna, are you saying all that was true? Joanna sneered, then spoke. Of course it's true. Don't believe me. Why would I forgive you for abandoning me back then, leaving me behind just so you could study abroad with some rich girl? Did you really think I'd let that go and stay with you? You whispered sweet words to me, played games with me. You think I didn't investigate you? You think I didn't know the truth back then? It was mutual use. I just wanted to put on a show for Kevin. I liked watching him get jealous. I wanted him to coax me. As her words fell, Nestor's eyes turned red. He asked, one word at a time, then what about me? What does this past year mean for me? Joanna rolled her eyes at him, utterly indifferent. Consider it my revenge, but I overplayed it. Kevin won't marry me anymore. He married another woman. So now, you're nothing. All right, they're here. Go. Right then, several police officers walked in. After glancing at Nestor, they stepped forward and escorted him away. What are you doing, Joanna? What are you trying to pull? First you fire me for no reason, and now the police are here to take me away. What false charges are you pinning on me? Even now, Nestor still wouldn't admit defeat. Joanna no longer had the energy to argue with him. You know very well what you've done behind my back. Nestor, you truly are a heartless bastard. After saying this, Joanna turned her head toward me, who had been watching from not far away. She picked up a resignation letter from her office and handed it to me. My resignation. I don't even know if it'll still be of use in the end. I look pathetic like this, don't I? Kevin, once this is over, will you forgive me? I took her resignation without even glancing at her. Officers, please take him away. Business and personal matters could never be mixed. Nestor had abused his position for personal gain, and as his superior, Joanna could not avoid being implicated. All I wanted to see was whether Joanna and Nestor would eventually turn on each other like rabid dogs. As Joanna was dragged away, her eyes were red, tears streaming down her face, yet her gaze remained fixed on me, all the way until the police escorted her out of the office. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye, and at last, the day of my wedding with Robin arrived. Before the ceremony, my assistant brought me news. It was confirmed beyond doubt that Nestor had illegally embezzled funds by abusing his position. And since he had been Joanna's subordinate, naturally, Joanna also came under investigation along with him. In the end, Nestor had tried to cover himself by shifting part of the blame onto Joanna. She couldn't wash it away. Both of them chose bail pending trial. But early this morning, before the court session, Joanna drove straight into Nestor. They both died instantly. This didn't bring me sorrow. Instead, it made me feel relieved. With my head held high, I turned and walked onto the wedding stage, my eyes fixed on the doors, waiting for my bride to arrive. My father-in-law placed Robin's hand into mine. We exchanged vows, slipped the wedding rings onto each other's fingers. How wonderful. This was my life.